Home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Please be seated.
Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet
Well,
you.
it's very convenient that they cut out a huge chunk of that story from Ruth because it's Children's Sunday. That would have been awkward. So anyway, I am a firm believer that the Bible should come wrapped in plastic and you should have to show an ID when you buy one. And people who don't think that haven't actually read it, because there's some pretty hardcore fun stuff in there. But we're going to talk about, and bear with me, because I'm going to try and tie Ruth and our gospel together, because I think there's some important stuff going on here. And I'm going to do this while wearing long robes, standing in front of you saying long prayers. Ha! Yeah, the irony is not lost on me. So it's always fun when you're a preacher and you get to preach about this gospel because, hello. Usually what we do instead is we do this right around when we're doing stewardship, and we focus on that beautiful, wonderful widow who gave so much. Thanks for all you give. Please feel free to give more. That's my stewardship sermon. Because I think it is important to note what is first in this. And these readings juxtapose the idea of power and appearance versus humble service. And that is something that we struggle with, isn't it? We have this idea that, man, this mic is killing me. I hope you understand the sacrifice and service that is me wearing a mic, because I hate them. But I do it because I care. Okay, so we have this idea that that if you are doing the God thing, it's going to look glorious, right? We love high church masses. We love copes. Anyone here, because you're in St. Anne's, anyone here know what a cope is? Yeah, right? You're like, what? In fact, you all notice when I actually wear a chasuble. You're like, what's with the thing that you're wearing over the things? And I'm like, this here is a chasuble. And it covers all the other gear that I wear. But we have like all these high church, we have all the regalia, we have the big banquets, and we do all these things. And if you have done this church thing right, you get incense. Yeah. And you're like, yeah, incense. I haven't done incense here because y'all will kill me. And frankly, I don't like it anyway. But, so we have this idea that this God thing looks elaborate and fantastic, right? And yet when we actually go into Scripture, what we find is the widow sacrificing in humility and giving quietly, almost ashamedly. Because when we really do it, it feels embarrassing that we're not doing more, right? In fact, most people here would not really want anyone to know how much money you give. And because there's this sense of like, I want to give as much as I possibly can. I wish I could give more. And we all have that. I have that feeling. I wish I could give more. We do the best that we possibly can. And that's why I really don't like this gospel for a stewardship mentality. What the power of this gospel is the power of our humility and how God acts most wildly in our embarrassed humility and our ashamedness, that we wish we could do more, that we want to do more. We don't want everyone else to know what we're doing because it feels like it should be better. Because if we are doing it in all of our glory and our long dresses, and come on, they're sweet. Also, they hide what I'm actually wearing, which is very useful. But there's something about that ashamedness, about this sense that there's no more to do. And God acts and there's no more hope. And that's the beauty of the story of Ruth and Naomi. Now, in all reality, Ruth should not have more children. The backstory of Ruth and Naomi is that everybody has died. All the dudes have died. And more so then than now, because now we're like, whatevs, I don't need no dude. But at that time, you needed a dude. You need a husband when he dies, because they have a habit of doing that before women do. What? Then you need a son, and your son will provide for you. Now, the danger comes when you have no husband and you have no son, because then what are you going to do? You're going to live in poverty. It's a horrible existence. And so there's really nothing left for Ruth and Naomi because there are no men. They've all died. And how's Ruth going to have anyone to care for her because she's a young widow? What is she going to do? But she follows Naomi and this incredible story, which is not as romantic as we might like. But hey, it works. So she ends up conceiving and bearing a son. And what is beautiful about this, and you may or may not have noticed the lineage that is offered at the end of this. And the power of that lineage is that that's the lineage that gives us Jesus. And this is a really, really common theme in the Bible. This idea that that the lineage should die. The line should have ended. And there are all sorts of stories in the Old Testament, some of them dirtier than this one even, that the line should have died, that there is no more hope. And yet, God acts in ashamed sorts of ways. And usually by women, because this is a girl power story. I love girl power. If you haven't noticed, we like to have a lot of girls on the altar. But there's this idea that God acts in this situation where all seems hopeless. And this ashamedness. That's when God acts. And yet, we often ignore that, don't we? We want the big, glorious things. We want all the incense. We want the robes. We want the long, okay, you don't want the long prayers. But we have this idea of all these glorious things. And yet, that's not what history shows us. That is not what the Bible shows us. The Bible shows us that God acts in the quiet humility, in the ashamedness. What if we looked at things differently? What if we looked at the things that we are embarrassed about? What if we looked at the things that make us feel hopeless? And we saw those as the gateway to Christ entering our world. What if in our ashamedness, we welcome God's glory? What would that look like? How would that change the way our world works? How would that change the way our life works? If we were okay with that level of vulnerability, if we were okay with that level of honesty and openness, that there are things that I'm ashamed of. There are things that embarrass me. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but I walk like a drunk. You want to know why I walk like a drunk? I'm not drunk. I'm glad for the mic. I am not drunk. I walk that way because I have a mess. What if I'm okay with that? If I'm okay with that vulnerability? What if I'm okay with my being ashamed that things don't always go the way that I want them to? What does that change? Does that allow God into our lives in a new way? What if? What if we didn't feel so bad about the fact that we can't give $1 million? I mean, if you have $1 million and you're looking to get rid of it, and you're like, I need to write this on my taxes, please call me. Because we got this mortgage, I'd love to see it gone. But what if we were okay with that? What if we could have those conversations and say, you know what, I am doing the best I can, and I'm going to do this. I'm willing to sacrifice for God to this level, and I'm okay with having that conversation. I'm okay with that vulnerability. What if? What if, as a church, we could say, you know what, our numbers are dwindling. You know what, we're okay with that. Because we know in the history of the church that we are at our best, that God is most active when we are being persecuted. What if we could talk like that? Then what would happen? So I ask you, stop being ashamed of your vulnerability. Because in that ashamedness, God shows up. In those things that feel hopeless, God acts. But only if we're willing to sacrifice the 2 last cents that we have. Or get knocked up on a threshing room floor. That's cool too. You do you.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.